A rich socialite mocked the black mechanic at a charity auction. Then he shocked everyone by bidding $10 million for the diamond, a true story. It was one of those events where everything had to look perfect. The hotel ballroom was dressed up from floor to ceiling. White tablecloths, tall flower arrangements, soft golden lighting, and the kind of crowd that only shows up when the entry ticket costs more than most people's monthly rent. It was a charity auction, one of the biggest in the city. The kind where rich people gather to spend money in front of other rich people and feel good about it afterward. The room was full. Women in gowns, men in tuxedos, champagne in every hand. And then, at about 7 in the evening, a man walked through the entrance wearing a plain flannel shirt, dark work trousers, and boots that had clearly seen many long days. He was a black man in his late 40s, calm in the way that only someone who is completely comfortable with himself can be calm. He collected his bidding paddle, number 47, found his seat at table 12, somewhere near the back of the room, and quietly opened the auction catalog. Nobody paid him much attention. Or rather, they paid him exactly the wrong kind of attention. There was a woman at this event, a socialite, the kind who had grown up with money and never once had to think about where it came from. She was the chair of the organizing committee. She had spent months planning this evening, and she moved through the room like she owned it, which in many ways she felt she did. When she passed by table 12 and noticed the man in the flannel shirt sitting with his catalog, she slowed down. She leaned slightly toward the friend beside her and said with a small laugh, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear, something along the lines of, "I think the valet parking got confused tonight." A few people laughed, a few looked away. The man at table 12 looked up from his catalog. He looked directly at the woman who had just said it. He held her gaze for a moment, not with anger, not with embarrassment, not with anything except a quiet, steady kind of stillness. Then he nodded once, slowly, and went back to reading his catalog. The woman moved on. The moment seemed to disappear into the noise of the evening. It did not disappear. It just waited. During the dinner service, the man's old friend, who had come with him and was sitting right beside him, was getting increasingly uncomfortable. He had heard the remark. He had seen the looks. He was the kind of person who would have said something, pushed back, made a scene if necessary. But his friend put one hand on his arm and said nothing. Just kept eating, calm as still water. Then the socialite passed again, this time near another table close to theirs. She glanced over, made another remark, quieter this time, but still careless in that very specific way that privileged people can be careless. Something about whether the catering staff was joining the guests for dinner. More quiet laughter. The friend gripped his fork. The man at table 12 reached over again, rested his hand on his friend's arm, and then did something unexpected. He reached into the catalog, opened it to lot 9, circled the reserve price with his pen, wrote a number next to it, and slid it across the table without a word. His friend looked at the number, then looked at him. The man simply picked up his fork and continued eating. Lot 9 was the headline item of the entire evening. It was a diamond bracelet, old, rare, and stunning. It had a name, the Kashmiri Fire. 14 carats, flawless, with a history that stretched back to the 1960s and a Maharaja's estate. The reserve price was $1.5 million. Before the auction even began, people were already whispering about it. A few serious collectors in the room had their eyes on it. The socialite herself had made clear to her friends that she intended to win it. The auction started at 9 o'clock. Item by item, the evening moved along. A safari trip, signed artwork, a vineyard weekend, all going for impressive numbers. The man at table 12 bid on nothing. He sat with both hands folded in his lap, paddle 47 face down on the table beside his water glass, watching the room the way someone watches a film they have already seen. When Lot 9 was announced, the energy in the room changed. The bracelet came out on a velvet cushion carried by a white-gloved attendant. The auctioneer, a sharp, experienced woman who had been running high-end auctions for nearly 3 decades, described the piece in careful detail. Then she opened the bidding. The bids came quickly, 500,000. 1 million, 2 million. By 2.4 million, the socialite raised her paddle from the front row with a confident backward glance at the room, the kind of look that says, "This is mine." By 3.5 million, it was down to just her and one other bidder. a well-known tech investor seated near the left side of the room. The crowd was completely still. People had stopped drinking. Phones were put down. 4.8 million. The tech investor paused. The auctioneer let the silence stretch. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. 4. She scanned the room. The socialite turned her head slowly, checking for competition. There was none visible. And then, from somewhere near the back of the room, a paddle went up. Paddle 47. The auctioneer saw it immediately. She did not flinch. In a clear, steady voice she said, "New bidder, paddle 47. Do I hear 5 million?" The paddle went up again. The man raised it slowly, with the same unhurried energy he had brought to everything else that evening. The auctioneer looked at him. He gave a single nod. $10 million. The number landed in that room like a stone dropped into a completely silent pond. For a moment, a long moment, nobody made a single sound. Not a clink of glass, not a whisper, nothing. 600 people holding their breath at the exact same time. The socialite turned in her chair. She looked toward table 12. She saw the man in the flannel shirt, the one she had joked about being a valet, the one she had implied did not belong here. Sitting with his paddle raised in the air, and his eyes fixed calmly on the auctioneer. No expression of triumph. No smirk. No performance of any kind. Just a man who had decided to raise his paddle, and had done it. The auctioneer gave the room its 30 seconds. Going once, going twice, nobody moved. The gavel came down. The applause started slowly, the way applause does when people are not entirely sure what just happened. And then it grew, and grew, until people were on their feet. The man at table 12 stood up, buttoned the top button of his flannel shirt, walked to the front of the room, and signed the paperwork. He shook the auctioneer's hand. She leaned in and said something quietly to him. Whatever it was, it made him smile. A small, private smile. And then he walked back through the crowd as people parted around him. Within the next 10 minutes, the truth began moving through the room, the way truth always moves. Quietly at first, then everywhere at once. The event coordinator had pulled up the registration file. The man at table 12 was not a confused valet. He was not a caterer. He was the founder and owner of a chain of premium auto service centers across 3 states, built from nothing, with annual revenues that most people in that ballroom could not match. More than that, his charitable foundation, which gave vocational scholarships to young people from low-income backgrounds, was listed right there in the gala's own program as one of the evening's featured beneficiaries. His name had been printed in the same typeface as every other donor. People started flipping through their programs. There he was. The socialite was surrounded by people who had heard her remarks. A close friend pulled her aside and spoke to her quietly. Whatever was said, it sent her across the room. She found him near the exit, waiting for his car to be brought around. She started with something prepared, something that would allow her to save face, explain herself, soften what she had said. He let her finish. He did not interrupt. And then he did something that, by every account from people who witnessed it, no one expected. He was kind to her, not cold, not victorious, not sarcastic. He told her, in very plain words, that he had not come to this event to prove anything to anyone. He had come because young people with nothing needed money to learn a skill that would feed them for the rest of their lives, and he happened to have money, and that was the whole story. He said something like, the rest of it, all of it, he gestured gently at the room, was just noise. He put out his hand. She shook it. Then his car came and he left. He drove away in a truck that was 10 years old. There is one more part of this story, and it is the part that says everything about the kind of person he was. The $10 million diamond bracelet, the Kashmiri fire, the one everyone in the room had wanted, the one the socialite had planned on winning, he did not keep it. He had decided before he ever walked into that ballroom that if he won it, he would donate it straight back to the gala's permanent fund, so it could be auctioned again the following year, and the year after that, and keep raising money for as long as people were willing to bid on it. The $10 million did not go to a bracelet sitting in a private safe somewhere. It went to programs that teach young people, the sons and daughters of mechanics, laborers, factory workers, how to build something with their hands. He had grown up as one of those kids. He had not forgotten it for a single day of his life. The story did not make headlines. It never turned into a viral moment or a television segment. It passed quietly from person to person, the way real things do, carried by the people who were in that room and could not stop thinking about what they had seen. What they had seen was not a rich man buying a diamond. What they had seen was a man who had every reason to be angry and chose not to be. A man who had been laughed at in a room full of people who thought they were better than him, and responded by quietly doing the most generous thing anyone did that entire evening. A man who walked in wearing work boots and walked out having changed the air in the room, not by demanding respect, but by never once needing it from the people who had refused to give it. The Socialite made a private donation to his foundation the following Monday. She sent no press release. She told no one. It was not much compared to 10 million, but it was the first time in a long time she had given something without wanting anyone to see her do it. Maybe that was the real thing he had changed that night. Not just the number on the fundraising board, but something quieter, something harder to measure. The way one person, carrying himself with complete dignity in a room that had decided to disrespect him, can make everyone around him look in the mirror whether they want to or not. He went home the same man he had always been. That was the whole point.